Anna celebrated her 30th birthday surrounded by family and friends. The days were filled with laughter, warmth, and gifts, and at the end of it, she cried quietly in the bathroom. Not from sadness, but from a profound mix of love and reflection. She felt cherished, yet beneath that joy, a quiet unease had begun to stir. No one could see it, and she couldn't fully understand it herself. It wasn't just the milestone of turning 30, it was a mirror reflecting the life she had imagined versus the life she had. She had a stable job she liked, colleagues who respected her, and friends who loved her. But she did not have a romantic partner, she did not have children, and she did not own a home. The gap between expectation and reality pressed on her chest like a weight she could not name. Loneliness, she realized, wasn't merely being alone. It was a deep internal sensation, a persistent quiet in her mind that no social interaction could fully fill. Even when sitting in a lively room, even when people laughed around her, she felt disconnected, as though an invisible barrier separated her from the rest of the world. She began noticing physical changes first. Her skin had grown dry, her hair started to thin, and she lost a noticeable amount of weight without trying. Every morning was a battle. Rising from bed required every ounce of energy she had. Her thoughts were constant, repetitive, and exhausting. She did not understand what was happening to her, and she could not put it into words. Anna only confided in one person, her best friend. Even this small act was difficult, and she felt the isolation deepen because she couldn't share her struggles more broadly. The secrecy made the loneliness worse. She often wondered if anyone else could possibly understand the turmoil within her. Every small task at work, answering emails, attending meetings, even walking down the corridor, felt monumental. She moved through the day on autopilot, performing the necessary functions while the noise in her head continued, relentless. And yet, life went on. Birthdays passed. Workdays continued. Friends reached out. Colleagues offered smiles and greetings. Anna appeared normal. Outwardly, she maintained composure. Inside, she was slowly unraveling. Anna's sense of loneliness deepened over the weeks and months following her birthday. She could be surrounded by people she loved, attending parties, meetings, or family dinners, and still feel utterly disconnected. The laughter around her sometimes felt like noise she wasn't part of, a reminder of a connection she yearned for but could not reach. She noticed that loneliness was not just emotional, it infiltrated her body. Her sleep was restless, often broken by thoughts she could not control. She began feeling physical tension in her chest, headaches that lingered, and an odd emptiness in her stomach. Simple daily routines became exhausting. Even getting dressed in the morning felt like climbing a mountain she had no energy for. She didn't fully understand what was happening to her. Each day blurred into the next, a haze of fatigue and quiet anxiety. Her mind replayed small disappointments endlessly, an email not answered quickly enough, a friend she hadn't texted, a conversation she felt awkward in. These thoughts weren't rational, but they consumed her nonetheless. Despite all this, she kept her struggles mostly hidden. At work, she smiled and completed her tasks, careful not to let anyone see how unwell she felt. At home, she sometimes curled up on the couch for hours, staring out the window, thinking about the life she thought she should have had by now. Occasionally, she would try to talk to someone about it, but words felt inadequate. She feared judgment or misunderstanding. Even her closest friend could only glimpse the depth of what she was experiencing. The act of speaking, of admitting weakness, felt impossibly difficult. She feared she would be seen as failing or that her life, in spite of appearances, was somehow insufficient. She began noticing small signs in her body that mirrored her internal struggle. Her appetite changed. She had lost more weight than she realized. Hair shed in clumps while washing it. Her skin lost its usual glow. Every mirror reminded her that something inside her was not as it should be. But without a clear explanation, she felt trapped in a cycle she could neither name nor understand. Anna's work remained a lifeline of sorts. Her colleagues were kind, unaware of the storm brewing inside her. She found some comfort in the structure of her job. Meetings, deadlines, and routine tasks provided a momentary distraction from the swirling thoughts and the weight of solitude. Still, after the workday ended, the quiet returned, pressing down on her. Even when surrounded by friends, at dinners or social gatherings, Anna felt removed from the joy she saw in others. She could laugh when prompted, smile politely, but it never reached her eyes. Inside, she carried a quiet ache, a sense that she was separate from the world she appeared to participate in. The weeks passed slowly, one blending into the next. Anna began to recognize patterns in her thoughts and emotions. She would wake each morning with a sense of dread, not knowing how she would survive the day, yet somehow she did. Survival became the only goal, small victories measured in brushing her teeth, answering an email, or making it through a meeting. She began to understand, in small, quiet moments, that loneliness was not about being physically alone, it was about feeling invisible, unheard, and disconnected from herself and those around her. Despite all the struggle, a tiny spark remained. Anna knew, even if only subconsciously, that reaching out, even in small ways, could eventually bring relief. But the first step, as always, seemed impossibly far away. After months of struggling in silence, Anna finally began to consider reaching out for help. It was not an easy decision. The idea of telling someone about the storm inside her felt vulnerable, frightening, and almost impossible. Yet the quiet loneliness had grown unbearable. She realized that she could not carry it alone any longer. Her first step was the hardest, talking to a professional. The act of admitting she needed help was frightening, but it also carried a strange sense of relief. For the first time in months, she spoke to someone who could listen without judgment. She described her feelings of emptiness, her sense of being disconnected, the exhaustion that clung to her body and mind. She recounted the way her life had seemed to drift apart from the expectations she had held. Therapy did not provide instant answers. There were no magic solutions, no simple fixes. What it offered was a space, a safe, contained environment where Anna could explore her thoughts and feelings without fear. She learned to recognize patterns, to notice the creeping thoughts that pulled her into deeper isolation, and to name them. She began to understand that much of her suffering stemmed from unspoken pressures and unmet expectations she had carried silently for years. Even the small realizations felt monumental. For the first time, Anna began to see that she was not failing or broken, she was navigating a deeply human experience that many people face silently. Understanding this gave her a flicker of hope, a fragile sense that change was possible. Anna slowly began sharing her journey with others, starting with her colleagues at work. She did not go into detail, there was no need, but she explained, in broad strokes, that she had been unwell and that she had sought support. She was surprised at the immediate relief that speaking aloud brought. Just by acknowledging her struggles, she felt less isolated. Others responded with warmth, understanding, and encouragement. Each conversation that followed reinforced this new perspective. She found that opening up, even briefly, made a difference. She began telling another trusted colleague each week, sharing her experience in small, measured doses. The act of verbalizing her feelings became a tool for reconnection and healing. Anna also noticed changes within herself. Small habits she had neglected for months, preparing proper meals, getting a full night's sleep, taking short walks, gradually returned. Her body slowly responded to these simple actions, and her mind followed. The physical symptoms of depression, the exhaustion, hair loss, dry skin, did not vanish immediately, but they began to improve over time as she prioritized her well-being. Therapy encouraged her to reflect on what truly mattered and to set realistic expectations for herself. She learned to distinguish between what she could control and what she could not, and to release the weight of impossible standards. Even small achievements, once dismissed as trivial, became milestones. Perhaps most importantly, Anna began to internalize the lesson that it was okay not to be okay. She did not need to hide her struggles or pretend to be strong at all times. Accepting vulnerability became a cornerstone of her recovery, and it allowed her to cultivate deeper connections with others. She realized that the act of sharing, even in small increments, could dissolve loneliness in ways she had never imagined. As weeks turned into months, Anna began to notice subtle changes in her daily life. Recovery was not sudden, nor was it linear. Some days were still heavy, mornings felt like a mountain to climb, and the echo of loneliness sometimes crept back in. But other days were lighter, filled with small victories she had once overlooked. She began structuring her day intentionally. Mornings were no longer a battle just to exist, they became opportunities for small achievements, making a simple breakfast, sending a thoughtful message to a friend, or stepping outside for a walk. Each action, no matter how minor it seemed, became a way to reclaim her energy and agency. At work, Anna's newfound self-awareness allowed her to interact differently with colleagues. She started to notice the importance of feeling heard. Sharing her journey, in small measures, not only eased her own isolation but also seemed to create subtle ripples of understanding among those around her. Her colleagues did not treat her differently, they simply listened, acknowledged, and validated her experience. That simple human connection had a profound impact on her sense of belonging. Anna also realized the importance of reflection. On difficult days, she allowed herself to slow down. She rewrote to-do lists to set realistic goals, prioritizing what was achievable rather than punishing herself with impossible expectations. The act of consciously planning and pacing her day gave her a sense of control she had not felt in years. Outside of work, she began seeking moments of joy and presence. Quiet afternoons reading a book, brief walks in nature, or spending intentional time with friends became anchors of her day. She learned to celebrate the small, seemingly mundane actions as proof of progress. Each step forward, however minor, reinforced the understanding that she was capable of growth, resilience, and change. Anna also became aware of the social environment around her. She noticed the ways workplaces, friendships, and communities could either support or isolate someone silently struggling. With this awareness, she took small actions to nurture conversations about well-being. She offered empathy, listening, and quiet support to others, drawing on her own experience to build understanding and compassion. Long pause. By the end of her recovery period, Anna had developed a rhythm. She recognized the signs of creeping loneliness early and knew when to reach out to someone, even briefly, before feelings grew overwhelming. Her days were no longer measured solely by survival, but by deliberate steps toward maintaining balance, connection, and emotional health. She discovered that life was not about avoiding struggle but learning to navigate it with awareness, patience, and self-compassion. The moments of pain and uncertainty had not vanished entirely, but they no longer defined her existence. They had become part of the story she could tell, a chapter of resilience and self-discovery. As Anna became more comfortable with her recovery, she began to think about others who might be silently struggling, just as she had. She realized that support was often most powerful when it came from someone who had lived through the same feelings of isolation, confusion, and despair. At work, she took on a new role, volunteering as the chair of a mental well-being group. She wanted to create a space where colleagues could have honest conversations without fear of judgment. Drawing from her own experience, she understood that sometimes the simplest act, listening, acknowledging, validating, could make a profound difference. Anna encouraged discussions about well-being in subtle ways. She shared stories of resilience, emphasizing that moments of struggle did not make someone weak, but human. Her goal was not to give advice or instructions, but to normalize the conversation around emotions, stress, and mental health. By doing so, she hoped to prevent others from feeling the same crushing isolation she had experienced. Outside of work, Anna also began reconnecting with friends and family more intentionally. She no longer waited for them to reach out. Even small gestures, a text, a coffee, a phone call, were significant steps in rebuilding her social support network. She learned that relationships required nurturing, and that being open about her feelings in safe spaces strengthened her bonds rather than weakening them. Through this process, Anna developed a new perspective on her own growth. She no longer measured her success by societal milestones or external achievements. Instead, she valued resilience, self-awareness, and the capacity to ask for help when needed. Her recovery had taught her that well-being was not a destination but a journey, a series of deliberate, compassionate steps toward understanding and maintaining oneself. Anna's story was no longer just about her own struggles, it had become about how human beings can connect, support, and uplift one another. By openly acknowledging her own vulnerabilities, she created space for others to do the same. She realized that sharing one's experience did not weaken a person, it strengthened not only herself but the community around her. She also recognized the ongoing nature of self-care. Even on good days, she maintained awareness of her mental state, adjusting her routines as needed, celebrating small victories, and forgiving herself when things felt overwhelming. Recovery was not linear, but with patience and conscious effort, each day offered the possibility of growth and balance. Looking back, Anna could see how far she had come. The loneliness that once seemed all-consuming no longer controlled her days. She had faced the quiet battles of her mind, endured the exhausting cycles of doubt, and gradually rebuilt a life that felt meaningful and connected. She reflected on the lessons learned through her journey. Most importantly, she realized that acknowledging her struggles was not a weakness, it was a strength. Accepting vulnerability allowed her to grow, to heal, and to connect with others in ways she had never imagined. Anna understood now that recovery is not a destination. It is an ongoing process of awareness, self-compassion, and deliberate choice. There would be days that felt heavy, times when loneliness crept back unexpectedly, but she had tools, insight, and the courage to navigate those moments. Each day was an opportunity to take small steps toward balance and connection. Her experience also changed how she viewed relationships and workplaces. She saw the profound impact of empathy, of being present and listening, and of creating environments where people felt safe to share their struggles. The support she had received fueled her desire to offer the same to others. Long pause. Anna's story was not unique, yet it was deeply personal. She knew there were countless others quietly navigating similar experiences. By sharing her journey, she hoped to normalize the conversation around mental health and resilience, helping others understand that they were never truly alone. In her heart, Anna carried a sense of hope and empowerment. She had faced the darkness, endured the difficult months, and emerged with a deeper understanding of herself and the human capacity for resilience. Each small step, every conversation, every act of self-care, every moment of connection, had contributed to rebuilding a life that felt authentic and meaningful. And while the journey continued, Anna could face the future with strength. She knew that challenges might arise, but she also knew that she could navigate them. Through reflection, awareness, and connection, she had discovered a powerful truth: humans have an extraordinary capacity to heal, grow, and find hope even in the darkest moments. Her story was one of struggle, but also one of courage. One of loneliness, but also connection. One of pain, but also recovery. And it was a story she could carry forward, not just for herself, but as a reminder to others that reaching out, sharing, and taking deliberate steps toward well-being are not signs of weakness, they are acts of profound human strength.